Hello everybody, Tericho here. I've got a little theory for you all, and it's not quite a big enough theory to do like a whole 10+ minute video on, I don't think, but I still think it's worth doing, so I'm going to talk about that theory in this video. We're going to look at the children from the comics. There's some links that have started to appear between the children in the comics and the games, and I want to kind of discuss those and give my theory and my opinion on those. But before we get into that, I just have a couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, on Thursday, if you're watching this video as it goes up or in the next few days, Thursday the 11th of March, there's a new game coming out. It's called Freakpocalypse, and it's by people that have made some funny things in the past, which I'm not an expert on, but I am aware of. And I have to be honest, this game just looks hilarious, and so I'm going to stream it. I'm going to stream it over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Tericho. If you have a Twitch account, or if you want to make one, come and hang out. I'll be streaming that game, playing it live, and we can all hang out and watch it together and play, and we can have a good time. So it's not going to be a Little Nightmares stream, it's going to be a Freakpocalypse stream on Thursday. Probably I'm going to do it on Twitch, purely because YouTube algorithm, you have to be a little bit careful about what you stream and what you play, and that game looks like it has some very risky themes. I'm just going to say that. It looks like it has some very risky themes, but it looks great, so I'm going to play that on Thursday. I'm not sure what time yet, because I don't know what time the game's going to release, but Thursday evening, I'm going to hang out and play. If you want to come and hang out, would be great to see you there. I'm going to leave my other announcement to the end of the video. I want to talk about Patreon, because I have a Patreon. I just haven't relaunched it yet. It's there, and I kind of want to relaunch it, but I'm going to talk about it at the end of the video, because I get some people don't like to talk about the financial talk, so I'll leave that to the end. If you want to hear about the Patreon, I'll leave that to the end of the video. So we have these 6 children, and these children are found in the Little Nightmares 2 official artwork, and they're also found in the comic. Now, if you haven't seen the comics, a lot of people ask this question. You can find the comics on the mobile store, so on the iPhone app store, it's on there. I'm sure it's on Android and whatever too. The comics are completely free. You can go and get them if you want to, and they're really interesting. And each episode, what would you call it? Issue of the... It's a digital comic. I don't know what you want to call it, but each little segment of the comic focuses on one child and kind of shows their demise. Now, the first interesting thing to note about the comics is that they are laid out in the opposite order to the children we see here. So the children that we can see Mono, the first one, Mono, makes sense. And then we see 4 other children, and then we see the last one, which is 6. And I'm still convinced that this is 6. Some people think that this is the girl from Very Little Nightmares just because of the clothing that she's wearing, but her hair is completely different. The girl from Very Little Nightmares has a long ponytail, and yeah, this very much looks like 6, who the comic episode looks like 6, and she's captured by the hunter, which we know that's 6. So I think it's pretty much basically, I mean, nothing is absolutely confirmed in these theories, but it's pretty safe to say, guys, this is 6. Okay, this is not Very Little. This is not the girl in the yellow raincoat. This is 6. Okay, again, I mean, prove me wrong. I would love you to, but it's 6. So we have these laid out, and we have 1, and then obviously 6 is the 6th girl. Makes sense to me. And interestingly enough, the comic episodes are in reverse order to this. So the first episode has 6, the second episode has the kid with the knapsack and the blindfold, and they go through in that order, and the final episode is Mono, which is another interesting little loop, but also reversal theme, because a lot of people, obviously we have the time loop theme, and we have I've said it before, I still think that Little Nightmares 2 is a broken timeline, not a loop, but we also have this reversal, which the reversal idea, I might actually make a video on that one, because the reversal idea kind of reverses, I guess, a lot of our speculation on how this game is working, and the theory that I'm going to put forward in this video kind of fits with that as well. So rather than it being a loop, it's almost like a reversal, which may be a video. So why am I talking about these children? These children who are found in the comics and in the artwork don't seem to appear in the game, but if you're really clever and really crafty, you can see little hints about these people all over. Just as a couple of ideas for you, for example, you can see the lollipop kid, or the chubby kid, whatever you want to call him. His lollipops appear in the toy shop. The girl with the bloody nose, the little redhead, she marks days in the hospital, which you can see the marking of the days all over the game in many different locations, which is another interesting point. And then the pictures. We see the pictures of these all throughout the game. Every single one of these children. I think the only one that I now that I think about it, the one that I don't think I've seen is the boy with the blindfolds. I don't actually remember or recall seeing his picture in the game, which is another interesting point. But anyway, most of these children are referenced in the game, but we never actually see them as alive characters, or do we? I've already given evidence that the Lollipop Kid is alive. There's a video on the channel. Go check that one out if you want, but I think he is still alive. I think he's in the school right now. But a lot of these kids appear in different locations, but then also in the game, the locations that they are hinted at are not the same locations as the comics, which I do think is hinting that these children have spent time in many different areas of the city. These are almost like survivors of this city, which is interesting. Now, the theory I want to talk about specifically in this video, though, is that we maybe can link all of these characters to other characters. Now, obviously, Mono and Six, they're excluded from this theory because we see their progression. We see Mono grow up into the Thin Man, and interestingly here, you can see that Mono is shown as being monochrome, or black and white, same thing. You can see that he's grayscale, and that's a nice little hint to him becoming the Thin Man. And we see Six's progression. She also gets her second game too, or the first game. So we can exclude those two from this because we already have big, massive backstories for those characters. Now, the other four, though, aside from the fact that we have little hints from them in the game, we can link them all to other characters. Now, the first one, and some of these links are tenuous. But it's interesting. So the first one, the Lollipop Kid, he kind of looks like the Barber. Now, the Barber is a character that was cut from the game, excuse my pun, and he was in the concept art. You see him as a fully fleshed out character. He presumably would have been a main enemy like the teacher and the doctor and the hunter and so on. And for whatever reason, time constraints or budget constraints, or maybe they just decided they couldn't, maybe they didn't like his overall character design, or what, I don't know. But for whatever reason, he wasn't added into the game. But the developers decided that he was important enough to add him into the artwork of the game. And this guy, you can find pictures of him through the Maw, which you can also find pictures of most of the enemies in Little Nightmares 2 in the Maw, by the way. And he's also found throughout the second game too. So he's a significant character. He just didn't make it into the game. Now, if you actually look at him, he does bear a striking resemblance to the Lollipop Kid. The first one that's pretty obvious is his face and his hair. Now, if you look at the Lollipop Kid's hair, he has these two little curls at the top of his hair. And the Barber has two curls, but his curls are just going out a different way. But obviously this is a grown-up version of the kid, right? He's wearing long socks with these little shoes, and you can see that the Lollipop Kid is the only character that wears shoes, the only child in this game that wears shoes, apart from the bullies, by the way. But yeah, he's wearing shoes and socks, which are very significant parts of the Barber's outfit, and then are very significant parts of this kid's outfit. We see other kids in the comics that have this sort of little overalls kind of thing. I think it might be like a school uniform or something like that, but that's by the by for now. So there's a resemblance, and so it's possible that this Barber is the grown-up form of the Lollipop Kid. Now, where this gets really interesting is the other three characters also have some very close similarities. Now, the next obvious one is the Ghost Kid, or the Sheet Kid, whatever you want to call him. We've already talked about him being interesting, that he's missing a limb, which is a huge theme of the hospital. Most of the mannequins are missing limbs, well, all of them are. So, that's a huge link to the hospital. But what's really interesting about him is if you look at his sort of defining characteristics, he's wearing a sheet over his head. Well, he's wearing a sheet over his whole body, which does look like a gnome's head as well, which is also interesting. But he's wearing a sheet over his entire body with two eye holes in the face area. And he only has one arm, or he's hiding an arm, or he only has one arm, whichever. But he only has one arm poking out. And he's missing his right arm. Now, if you look at the hunter is also wearing something over his head, and he only has one eye hole, but he still has an eye hole, and he also potentially only has one arm. If you look really closely at the hunter, his right arm is coming apart. It's like it looks like it's been stitched on and stuffed, which could be this kid grown up and giving himself a working arm, and that coming to life because of the magic of the signal tower. So it's entirely possible that this kid did become the hunter. Now, the other two are a little bit more tricky, and if you look at the redhead girl with the bloody nose, she definitely, in my opinion, has been in the school and the hospital. She's been in both of those. We see her in the hospital in the comics, and in the comics she's scratching Days on the wall with a spoon, and then she eventually starts digging her way out of that room, and when she finally gets through to the next room, she's in another room that's also full of scratch marks, which has so many different interpretations. I'm not going to get to them in this video. But her key sort of defining characteristic is that she scratches stuff on the walls with a spoon, and she also digs her way out of places. Now, if we go back to the school, we can see this room where the wall has been dug through. There's a spoon here, and there's scratches on the wall. Very easy connection to make between her. I once thought that could be Six, and it still could be, but it's much more likely to be this girl. But we also see this bedsheet rope that here, which presumably was this girl escaping, which we also see in the hospital. So all of this could mean that these children are, going through multiple timelines or existing in multiple universes or have, reset or whatever. There's so many different interpretations, but they've definitely been around this city for a while. Now, the girl with the bloody nose, the little redhead girl, she could be the teacher. And the reason why she could be the teacher, it's a very tenuous link, but we only see her scratching things into the walls. And now in the school, in one of the segments where you're going past the teacher, you can actually see that the teacher is drawing on the chalkboard. And one of the chalkboards has 5 days scratched into it, or 5, tally marks. There we go. That's the correct term, tally marks. It has 5 tally marks in it. And that could be a link. And then it is a very tenuous one, but it could be. And also the idea that she has a bloody nose, in my opinion, could be a link to her being bullied. We have the bullies as a character or characters in this game, and who would give her a bloody nose? A bully. It makes sense. A bully would give her a bloody nose, which could makes sense if you think about it. If she was to grow up to become this monstrous teacher, no wonder she doesn't tolerate any bullying, because she was bullied as a child. She remembers that in some degree, and so now she's very, very strict. And there's a lot of people will say that a lot of people in authority figures become bullies themselves in a way. A lot of people suggest that if you're bullied as a kid, you're more likely to become a bully as an adult. And if you look at the teacher, she's clearly a bully. She's not really even disciplining these children. She's being mean, guys. She's a mean, nasty teacher. So that's a link there potentially. Now we have this last one, and this last one is a little bit tricky to figure out, but there is an obvious thing there, and that's his bandages. If you look at his bandages, he has half of his face covered up. Now, we don't have any other characters in the game of Little Nightmares 2 that have their faces covered up, but we do have a character in the first game. If you look at Roger's mask falls down and he is blind. Roger is blind, and this kid presumably is also blind. I mean, I wouldn't be able to see through that. So we have this blind kid. His mask is also the opposite to Roger's mask. Roger's mask has fallen down and is covering the bottom half of his face. This kid's mask is covering the top half of his face. The knapsack could, again, very tenuous link, but it could be a hint that he, knapsack catching things. I mean, it's more transporting things, not the catching things, but Roger definitely catches people and then transports them around the moor. It could be a little link there. It's a very tenuous link. However, another thing, if you look at this one, he is the shortest of all of the characters. He is by far shorter than all of these other children, which means he could be younger. He seems like he's wearing a nappy or a diaper if you're American, but Roger, if you think about it, Roger's proportions are quite short and stubby too. He has really long arms, yeah, but his body's actually quite short and stubby. So this could be another reference. It could be him being a short, stubby little kid, and that could be hinting that he's Roger. Now, all of these links are, they might just be sort of little, like teases or little hints, but it's just weird how, if you look at all of these characters, there's so much thought and effort has been going into these characters. I mean, yes, we have them in the comics, right? But why did they make the comics? Why did Bandai and Tarsier? I don't know. I don't think Tarsier made the comics, but why were the comics made to have these children in that never show up in the game, but they're referenced in the game, and then we have all of this backstory and character for seemingly no reason? Like, yeah, sure, world building, it makes the world cooler, and I we all like it. That's great, but why? Why are these children significant? We could have had 6 episodes between Mono and Six, or we could have had 6 episodes just of Mono. So why are they adding in these extra characters if they're not significant in a way, but then they're not playable? Now, maybe if we get DLC, we'll get to play as these children, and that'll be cool. And also another thing before, because I know somebody's going to comment it in the comments, but Tericho, these children all die. We don't actually see any of them die. We don't see any of them die. We see the blind kid go into the TV, or presumably, but we don't actually see any of these kids die. We see them get caught or we see them get trapped. We don't really see them die. And also, as I've said many times before, we really don't fully understand the timeline in Little Nightmares 2. It could be a time loop. It could be a broken timeline. There's so many different explanations that could, you know, suggest that the timeline of Little Nightmares 2 is just sort of all over the place, and so it's entirely possible that these children, you know, they might have died in one reality and they could have grown up to become monsters in another reality. And also, every adult in this world, by the way, is a monster. We never see a normal adult. Even the more normal characters, like the teacher, yes, she has normal behaviors like she's teaching, but she's still a monster, obviously. You know, she's got the long, crazy neck and stuff. So every sort of adult in this world becomes a monster. So what if these 4 children, that one of their possible sort of timelines is them growing up and them becoming the monsters? And maybe in this timeline, they did get caught, but maybe in a different timeline, they did grow up to be monsters. There's got to be something. There's got to be something. And I think that the most easy one to look at is the Lollipop Kid. If you look at him and you look at the barber, that's got to be a link there. That's got to be a link. It has to be. So anyway, that's my theory on these 4 children. Like I say, we already know what happens to Mono and Six, so they're kind of excluded from this. So we already know that both of those also grow up to be monsters. You know, everybody does in this world, apparently. So yeah, that's my theory. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said at the beginning of the video, I am going to be relaunching my Patreon soon. So Patreon, if you're not aware of what Patreon is a way that you can financially support creators. Now, I want to be very, very clear on this. Patreon is and will always be completely optional, and you know, I will never put my theory content or my gaming content behind a Patreon paywall. I will never ever do that. But what I'm thinking about doing for my Patreon is having sort of more personal content, so more like behind the scenes or like, you know, kind of vlogging or outtaking kind of content. So if you want a bit more of a personal touch, that's what I'm thinking about doing for my Patreon. I'm gonna hopefully upload some content on there in the next few days, hopefully. But I haven't all figured it out yet. It's just I want to let you guys know that Patreon is going to be coming. It's something that will basically let me not have to go back to work, and that will mean that I will have, you know, more time to continue doing videos. And so I thought that maybe if you guys have, you know, a spare couple of dollars a month, if you want to throw them at the channel, that's your opportunity. You can also join if you want to be a channel member. We are going to be getting some new emotes for the channel, so if you want to become a channel member, there's the channel membership option. But again, it's all optional. I'm never going to paywall any content. I'm never going to put any content where you have to pay it to watch it. All the content will remain free, and it's entirely up to you if you want to view the content. If you want, you know, if you want to view the content and you don't want to do anything additional, that's great. That's brilliant. I'm happy that you're watching my content. But if you want to go that one step further and you want to support financially, you have the option. It's all about options. I like options. Options are good. Anyway, I'm going to stop because this video is probably already longer than it needs to be. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.